Hi everyone, thank you for joining our webinar today on remote learning and coping with stress. I'm Elisa, I'm a business psychologist at Thrive, and today my co-host is Dominica, who's also a business psychologist at Thrive. Hi Dom.
Hiya.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Dominica Sis. I'm also a business psychologist at Thrive. I'm also a full-time master occupational psychology student at the University of Hertfordshire. And today, me and my colleague will talk to you about remote learning and how you can cope with stress.
Yeah, so the great thing about Dom is that she's also currently a student herself, so she can really relate to the struggles that people might be going through at the moment, and she'll give some insight on how she's coping herself at the moment as well. So today we'll be discussing the challenges students might be facing when studying remotely, as well as what stress is and how to cope with it. It's really difficult to stay motivated and focused during these uncertain times, so hopefully some of these coping strategies and tips can help you. Also, just so you know, this webinar will be recorded and a link will be sent to you once this has been uploaded. This webinar will last for approximately 40 minutes and there's a 15-minute Q&A session at the end. So please use the Q&A box or the chat box for any questions and comments you might have, and we will try to answer them as we go along or just leave them until the end of the 15 minutes. So here's just a quick summary of the main topics we will be covering. We will discuss what challenges there might be with remote learning and give you tips on how to deal with them. We will talk about how to prevent getting distracted from interruptions going on around you. Then the second part of this webinar will be about what stress is and different stress symptoms that you might be feeling at the moment. Lastly, we will give you some coping strategies on how to manage your stress better, as well as some psychological techniques that can really help to build your resilience. So what are the challenges you might be facing when working from home? Foremost, it's the challenge of having to adapt to a new lifestyle, as being at home now does not just mean it's time for you to relax, but also time for learning and studying. I know that when I used to be at uni, many of my friends preferred to go to the library to study, as they valued this physical boundary between working at uni and relaxation at home. However, unfortunately, this is not really an option at the moment anymore, so many will have to adjust their lifestyle to be able to do both effectively from one place, from home. If physical boundaries and location are a significant contributing factor to your concentration, then maybe if possible, it would help you to study in a different room than the one you sleep in, so that you associate your bedroom with sleeping and relaxation, while the kitchen or living room is a place of work for yourself. What are you doing currently at the moment to study, Dom?
Because I live with my parents, so it's quite hard for me to find my own space. So what I tend to do is I've got this little corner in my room, so I've got a little desk, so I tend to just work in that little corner. So I try not to take my laptop into bed with me, because I know that some people do that, but that would so if I'm basically on my laptop and in my bed or something, I will tend to do work. It would either be work or uni work. So I need to have that sort of space where I know that, okay, I'll sit down, this is the only thing that I'll be doing, which is just uni related or work related. So I try to, as you say, set myself a physical boundary and do work just in that corner.
Yeah. So yeah, even if it's not possible for you to maybe find a different room or find a different location, still having that physical boundary of not doing work in your bed can be really helpful, like Dom is doing. For me personally, at the moment, I also, because I'm living with my family, I have to work also just from my bedroom. So I also make sure that I have my desk for my working space, and then my bed is just for relaxation and sleep. There's also different strategies to keep up these boundaries when you build different schedules around your timing. So aim to stick to certain timings. For example, you wake up at 9 a.m., you start to study at 10 a.m., you take a break for 1 or 2 hours for lunch, and then you study a couple of hours more later. So during those 1 or 2 hour breaks, you make yourself something for lunch, you go for a walk or do some exercise, just really freshen up your mind before going back to study. Also, depending on what lectures you have on certain days, maybe construct your schedule around them. Maybe on Sunday evenings, look at your week ahead and create this ideal schedule accordingly, and try to stick to it as best as you can. This way you will have time to really keep doing the things that you enjoy and give you a sense of purpose as well as structure in your life. Also, when waking up in the morning, don't just roll out of bed and go straight to your desk. Maybe take some time to have breakfast, take a shower, maybe change out of your pajamas, maybe make your bed, whatever helps you to really get ready for the day. This way you prepare yourself mentally and practically for the day ahead, and signaling to yourself that it's really time to concentrate and do some work. And then in the evening, change back into your pajamas and maybe change the atmosphere in your room, switching off some bright lights, putting on a Netflix show, making yourself some tea without caffeine, preferably, doing some yoga, anything that helps you really wind down and really get prepared for like a restful sleep. So it's really important to take care of your sleep hygiene and make sure you get enough sleep, as during our sleep, our brain replays memories. So this prompts you to remember what you might have learned throughout the day. So it's really not a great idea to do all-nighters, as in the end, you just feel tired and you probably will not have learned anything new from them. So really make sure that you keep up a good sleep hygiene, and you can do this by using sleep schedules, which you can just Google sleep schedule online, and you can find some which can really help you keep track of what you're doing before you sleep, creating these rituals such as taking a bath and reading a book or drinking a herbal tea before you sleep can really help to start associating with this time of relaxation and sleep, and feel more energized for the next day. Also, on a side note, it's so important to remember that some people might prefer studying earlier during the day and others prefer studying in the evening. That is perfectly fine, as we all have really individual chronotypes. So just try to adjust your schedule accordingly to when you see your best performances, when your best productivity is, because there's no right or wrong structure to your personal schedule. I know that for Dom, probably, because I know that you wake up really early in the morning, right?
Yeah, so I tend to, I mean, my sleeping pattern is quite difficult to keep track of, only because it does vary from day to day. Certain days I do like to work during the night, so I can't sometimes sleep up until 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning, so I tend to do work then when I have my relaxation time during the midday. However, what I try to do now is to go for a walk before the evening, just to tire myself out a bit. So I've got that smooth transition of going into bed, feel a little bit tired. And I mean, it's been helping right now just because of what's going on. To be honest, I do find it more useful going for a walk before bedtime. And yeah, I've been lucky enough not to do any work nowadays. I think it might be because of what's going on, and I know that I'm at home and I've got the ability to do work during the day. It might be because of that, but you know.
Yeah, it's really individual for you to know when the best time for you is to relax and when to work, and how you want to build your schedules around it. But like, you know, you're building your schedule around also having that walk in the evening. So really, you know, being able to start feeling tired and then get that sleep that you need. So having something, whatever suits you best and which works for you in the moment is really useful. So trying out different things, such as going for a walk or maybe doing some yoga or other things that help you to relax before you sleep can be really helpful. So challenges that you might have with adapting to this new lifestyle is that it requires strong management and motivational skills. It's really normal to feel demotivated at times and maybe even uninterested in a particular topic that you might have to write an essay on. I know that, Dom, you told me that you had to write an essay on something that you really weren't interested in, and
it was was quite intense, especially now when the whole module has been rearranged and it's something that I've never done before, and just getting it, like just having this topic thrown at me and having very limited amount of online guiding, because I don't know about any other university, but my university has cut my learning to about 1 hour lecture a day when it used to be 3 hours. So it is quite of a chop, to be honest. So I'm just trying to get used to, you know, getting the most of information from my live conferences from my university, which has been quite difficult, especially since as a course we are still waiting for the approval from the BPS for it to be fully accredited. So it's still uncertain times when it comes to my degree at the moment. So just hoping for the best, and you know, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's the adding of all these different new challenges that just accumulate, and obviously your stress levels will go up and your concentration and motivation might, just go down at these points. We will talk a little bit about stress a bit later, but yeah, it's definitely a challenge. We'll give you some tips and coping strategies on how to stay focused even during these times when you feel less motivated in the next slide. But there's also these interruptions that you have to deal with now, such as being from home, being with a family and all of that, which can really disrupt your concentration. So the next slide will talk about some more tips on how to deal with these distractions. So other challenges you might face is that responses to questions are not always immediate, as well as that there's this learning curve for individuals who may be less technically adept. So everything might take a little bit longer than expected, or technical complications might occur, which you didn't have to think about before. It's important to keep in touch with the admin of your course as well as teaching staff, so they can help you with any uncertainty you might be facing. Also stay in touch with each other in your course, as you will probably be having similar questions and similar challenges. You can help each other to find solutions or discuss what is working well and what isn't. I'm sure during this time, the admin team and lecturers will be bombarded with individual emails and questions. So maybe it's a good idea to get together with everyone in your course and maybe write just one email with all of the pressing questions and complications you might be facing, and send it off with everyone CC'd into it. This way, no question will be overlooked, and it will make it easier for the lecturer or admin to have an overview of what to answer and what the challenges are and where you might need more support with, instead of having like hundreds of emails coming in at once, because then easily some emails could be overlooked and it might take longer to be answered. So maybe try to structure everything together so you can come up with something, with a solution all at once. So try to create some Facebook groups or WhatsApp. Groups. Yeah.
It's quite good to have also, I know majority of the universities have student reps. It's quite good to communicate any concerns that you have to those student reps, because they will be able to communicate any concerns that you have with other departments as well.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Dom. Lastly, there's also the issue of having a less social interaction, which can ultimately really lead to feelings of isolation and sometimes even miscommunication. So when constantly also speaking over text, you might misinterpret what others are saying and misunderstand situations, as you will not be able to see the person's body language. So it's important maybe sometimes to even pick up the phone or use FaceTime or Skype to see each other once in a while, to really build this connection and not feel this disconnect from everyone. And maybe if there's some tension within the groups, just make sure that you pick up the phone, because there might have been a miscommunication. In our organization, we have organized also these pub quizzes for Friday evenings, which have been quite fun. And maybe student unions could organize something online for all the students. And if they're not, maybe it would be a good idea to suggest to the student unions to create some online events in order to keep this social interaction going. Also, studying together in groups or over FaceTime or Skype can help you to stay focused as well as motivated to learn, especially if you find a subject maybe particularly difficult or kind of uninteresting. So discussing this and learning together can help you to understand as well as to really help you to memorize what you're learning. So here are some tips on how to prevent interruptions. It's really difficult to keep concentrating when there are a lot of things happening around you. Many of us might be living with roommates or at home or with our family. There might be noise or commotion going on around you. So here are some tips to have less distraction from these interruptions. I know that you are currently living at home, right, Dom?
Yes, so what I tend to do is I have made a little schedule of my availability for my family to, you know, if they've got any questions or they want to talk to me, they have to stick to the schedule as well as I do. So like, I know that I've got lecture, let's say on Monday, 9 a.m. I have a schedule, right? Dear parents, or, you know, anyone talk to me between this and that time, for example, or, you know, it's just for them to know that, okay, this is the time that we can't interrupt her. Let her stay focused, let her do work that needs to get done. So I find it very helpful in terms of having a schedule literally stuck on my door.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good idea. Yeah, sticking a schedule to your door so they don't even have to knock on the door or anything to ask you. But yeah, it's a really good idea. And also it helps, you know, parents to who also might be working to build their schedules around the children as well, to figure out when you can all maybe have lunch together at some point, or if you can, if you can't. All these things, or when others around you should be more quiet, and all of that. So this is really a simple way to make sure that everyone is on the same page. Maybe get together like in the mornings to do that, or maybe on Sunday evenings to prepare for the week ahead, all of that. So obviously the simplest thing also is to close your door and let people know that when your door is closed, you'll be working and you'll be concentrating and you don't want any interruption. It could also be helpful to let people know of your schedule, as we've said, so synchronizing each schedule to one another. Then it might be good to set yourself an alert for study times and how long you want to study for. There's a lot of apps out there which help you to time your studying and your rest time. So there's an app called Forest, Stay Focused, where you'll basically plant a seed and it grows over time into a tree with a timer that you have set for yourself. And while this tree is growing, you will not be able to access your phone. So this already eliminates your phone being a distraction from you. And at some point, maybe you will have grown many, many trees, and then you can build a whole forest. So this helps you to really not be distracted from a lot of things around you and keep you motivated to stick to your timings. Do you use any of those apps, Dom?
I don't. I think what I tend to do, because for me it's quite hard to stick to a time schedule when I learn. I tend to have sort of regular breaks within half an hour to an hour of learning, but I do get distracted easily. So for me, it's easier to switch off my phone and stay off rather than use anything, because I'll get distracted. And for me personally, I would look, okay, how many trees do I have now? Every 5 minutes, basically. So I personally don't, but it might work for some.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it is really
it's just a fun way.
If it works, if it doesn't. For some it does, for some it doesn't. I'm more like you, where I just, you know, switch everything off, put it to the side and do that. But yeah, for some people it might really help to stick to those timings and, you know,
I think quite a crucial thing to do is not to give mixed signals. I think if you're learning or working, stick to it. Like, don't suddenly go on phone, try and show your, I don't know, a flatmate a funny video that you just saw on Facebook or Instagram. I think it's like, once you're off, you're in the zone, try to stick to being in that zone.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just...
Yeah. So also try to create a calendar and to-do list. This might be helpful for you to set yourself maybe at least one big goal a day, maybe finishing writing a certain number of words for an essay, or finishing reading a chapter within a book. And just one goal a day might be able to help you feel more in control and productive. You might be less worried if you finish that goal within the day, but don't be too excited to set yourself too many goals, because that will be difficult to keep concentrated, and then you will feel demotivated in the end if you don't manage to finish all the goals you have set for yourself. So just be realistic in what goals you set for yourself, and how productive you can be in the time that you have set for yourself. Also, batch your tasks. So don't try, as I said before, just don't try to do too many things at once, as you probably won't stay motivated and focused. If you really don't feel like you can focus anymore, then maybe a change of scenery might be helpful to you. So step outside to do some exercise or go for a walk. This can really help to renew your energy and maybe change of perspective to come back to your work with a fresh outlook. Or if you don't feel like going outside, call a friend so you can keep your mind on something else for some time and then go back to work when you feel ready. And as Dom had said, taking many regular breaks can be really helpful as well. So
even
maybe
if it's like 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, like every hour, right? Yeah. So yeah, every hour that you've timed maybe for yourself, just 5 to 10 minutes where you do something completely different and just, regain some energy and focus back into your studying, basically. So the second part of this webinar will be about stress. During these uncertain times, it's quite stressful for most of us, as we have all these worries about our future, about exams, when we will be able to graduate, what we will do afterwards, and many more. So studying can be really stressful even when there was no pandemic going on, but now it might feel that things are just accumulating and your stress levels might be higher than usual. So stress can be felt in several ways. You could have thoughts and feelings such as being agitated or frustrated with the situation, feeling overwhelmed because you might have to get used to a whole new lifestyle now, deal with new challenges coming your way. You could also feel lonely because of limited social interaction, or unable to switch off from the worrying thoughts that you might be having. There's also behavioral signs such as picking at your skin, eating too much or too little, using unhealthy coping strategies such as drugs and alcohol, which could ultimately make things worse for you, or being constantly tearful and crying often. Lastly, there's this physical signs of stress, such as low energy, upset stomach, fight or flight symptoms such as elevated heart rate, shallow breathing, sweaty palms, and so on. So everyone really reacts differently to these stressful situations. I know that for myself, I tend to get more physical symptoms, such as stomach aches, but would be emotionally quite calm. So it really depends on the individual, how they react to stress. And that's also why the list of feelings, behaviors, and physical signs is so long, because everyone really displays it differently. How do you feel about stress, Dom?
So it does depend to what sort of experience I have. There are different ways I do. So sometimes I overthink things. I get very emotional, very panicky about certain situations. But I do tend to pick my face. I do tend to bite my nails. I can get very tearful. I do get aches. So for me, it's a combination of physical as well as emotional.
Yeah.
So it does depend, I think, on the day, maybe, on what caused my stress in the first place. But these are the ones that I always experience.
Yeah. And do you feel like these are subconscious things that happen, or do you feel like they're consciously happening to you at the time?
Oh, I think they're completely subconscious. And maybe, I think when it comes to my emotional stress, I think that's sort of conscious, because I tend to overthink it. I start to get very panicky, and then I get emotional. So that is definitely a thought one. But when it comes to biting my nails, I sort of think it's partially a habit. So that's very unconscious, as well as picking my face. Like, these are the ones that I always do. So
yeah, there's more common ones that
yeah.
are usual to everyone. Like for me, it's always a stomach ache. Like no matter what it is, it's a stomach ache. But
So you know you're stressed.
Yeah, exactly. It's good to be aware of it as well, because also currently with the physical symptoms that you might have, you could virus, and so it's really important to be able to manage your stress and know yourself and how to calm down your mind, so in order not to really add worries to yourself that you might be sick or something, because even stress can affect you physically as well. So what is stress? And if it feels so horrible, why do we even have it? Basically, it's an evolutionary response which prepares our body for fight, flight, or freeze. These high levels of physiological arousal, such as increased heart rate and faster breathing, which helps us to pump oxygen around our body, helps us to react faster and focus in dangerous situations to save our lives. However, it would be really harmful for us to be constantly in the state, so it really needs to be selective when it responds. So this brings me on to my next point about chronic versus acute stress. Acute short-term stress can help us perform better, can save our lives. Adrenaline can help us have quicker reaction times and increased awareness. For example, if you think of a sprinter, they will build up stress levels within their body right before a race, which will help their performance. And this stored up energy will be released during and after the race, so the body can go back to baseline. However, if you think of someone who works from home all day and might feel similar stress levels rise because of an important deadline that's coming up there, and that they don't feel ready for, they cannot release this build-up tension the same way that a sprinter can. Also, deadlines is really something that's going to keep coming up, so stress levels may never reduce significantly, hence resulting in chronic stress. So chronic stress can cause a number of psychological and physiological complications, such as cardiovascular disease, obesity, and depression or anxiety. How do we handle these constant stressful situations? You need to really ask yourself, is your life in danger? If your life is not in danger, there's really no need for you to have these fight or flight symptoms. So there is no need for this response to be active. However, as said before, we do need a certain level of stress in order to perform better. A theory which shows this positive aspect of stress is the Yrkes Dodson law. As you can see this bell-shaped curve at the left-hand corner at the top. The theory behind this law is that performance increases with physiological and mental arousal, but only up to a point. When the stress levels are too high or too low, performance decreases. Another example, going back to the deadline, if you have a deadline which is months away, your stress levels will be really, really low, and you might be procrastinating, maybe watching Netflix, doing things that really don't relate to the task. However, the closer you come to the deadline, the more your stress levels will rise until you frantically basically try to complete everything just hours before the deadline. So when your stress levels are too high or too low, your performance will not be as good as it would be. The optimum level of arousal is really unique to every single individual. For some, our optimum level might be 1 month before the deadline, while for others, it could be just 2 weeks before the deadline. It's really up to the individual to understand when their concentration is at their best, so that they can complete the task to the best of their ability. Another important point to consider is the type of task that needs to be completed. As Dom said before, she's got a task that she's really unfamiliar with, so her stress levels might be already quite high to begin with. So it might be wiser to start a little bit earlier on this task so that time pressure doesn't add more to the stress. So every single situation is really unique, and every individual is unique in their ability to use their stress levels for their optimum performance. The next point is about stress perception. Generally speaking, there's really no such thing as an inherently stressful situation. It's all about how the situation is perceived. Referring to the COVID-19 outbreak, some of us might not feel stressed about the situation, while others could be feeling extremely stressed and worried. There's really no right or wrong response. Your examples of a stressful situation will be unique to your own stress perception. We can't quantify it or predict exactly the amount of stress every single individual will feel in a particular situation. You should also never feel that just because you might be more stressed than others because of this certain situation, that you are any less capable of them to deal with it. Everyone's life is different, and everyone had been through different experiences which determine their stress threshold as well as their resilience. For example, if when you were growing up and your parents always sheltered you from experiencing stressful situations, you might have a lower threshold than others and perceive more situations as more stressful than others. But the good news is that people can really calibrate this threshold. If you are passive, your threshold will be set for you. However, if you practice and expose yourself and learn from stressful situations, you can reset this threshold for it to become higher so that you can deal with future stressful situations in a more effective way. It's really never going to be easy to set this threshold because it's hard to, it's something that you have learned from a young age. It's basically like learning a new skill. It takes time and practice, but what you need to remember is that you do have control over it. So for example, if you've ever driven a car, or the first time you got into a car, you might have been an extremely stressful situation for you because you've never experienced it before. There was many different things you had to pay attention to at the same time. But over time, you have learned how to drive, you have learned the skills, and you feel more confident with it. So now you get into the car and you don't even think about it twice. It's like second nature to you. So your threshold has become much higher than what it used to be about that specific event in your life. So this is how you can calibrate it, just with practice and time and exposure. So the next point is about resilience, which is basically a sister concept. It's our ability to bounce back after something bad or stressful has happened to you. Resilience can be determined by a number of social, biological, and psychological factors. So social aspects can be your social network, such as your friends and your family, or even the way that society is set up around you, such as knowing that you have access to free healthcare through the NHS, which in the US is not available to them. So they might react to stressful situations in a different way and not feel as resilient because they know they don't all have access to it, because they might lose their jobs and then they won't get this access. It's important to remember that also your social network does not necessarily need to be physically present for it to be useful, or you don't necessarily need to use it all the time for it to be useful. Just knowing that it's available and that it's there, and then if you do need it, you do have access to it, just knowing that is already building the safety net around you, which is helping you to build your resilience. Then the biological aspect of resilience is basically genetic factors that contribute to your resilience. However, the good news is that it's only 50% of the response which is affected by your genes. So there's really a large component you are able to control yourself, which links back to learning how to build resilience, changing your threshold, like learning a new skill. And this is done through psychological factors of resilience. These are basically skills you have learned throughout your life to cope with stress, as well as experiences you have been through. And this will help you to calibrate this threshold. So some like to think of resilience as toughness, which is not always really helpful to someone who has built their identity around always being able to cope and handle everything, because one day they might not be able to cope, and this would mean that their whole identity would be compromised. A more helpful term to use is anti-fragility. So the concept of anti-fragility really emphasizes on facing challenges and learning from these experiences. The key is to really accept that things might defeat you one day, but you have to pay attention to the lessons that you will have learned. It's never about really having things figured out. It's about figuring things out along the way. A beautiful metaphor of this is encapsulated by the Japanese art of kintsugi. You can see the bowl in the corner on the right. It's an art form where the cracks are repaired with gold, which further refines the pottery, symbolizing that things can be even more beautiful and stronger once they have been put back together after being broken. Also linking back to perception of the situation. After having been through some tough experience, you might be able to handle new stressful experiences in a more resilient manner and perceive situations in a different light, helping you to cope better with future events. So going back to the COVID-19 outbreak, we might feel overwhelmed at this point, but we will be able to learn from this experience and we will be able to come out stronger afterwards. So lastly, here are some coping strategies that you can do with stress. They're quite similar to the tips that we gave before, but they're just basically focused more around how to deal with stress. So here are 6 tips that might help you. Organizing your time. We talked about the importance of schedules and keeping up a daily routine where you can do activities that you enjoy and give you purpose. Using apps such as Forest can help you to keep track of your timings that you have planned in for work and for relaxation. Having structure in our lives can really make us feel more in control and can give us more of a purpose. Connect with people to share your experiences and your worries. A lot of us are facing similar stresses at the moment, so talking about this and validating how you feel can help you feel more at ease about the situation and can help you feel more supported and connected. Currently, there's also a lot of volunteering positions that people are signing up for in order to feel like they're doing something positive for the community. Altruistic behavior has been shown to be positive for both yourself and for other people as well. So maybe think about doing that. Address the cause. What is stressing you? What is worrying you? Maybe make a list and try to think of solutions. If you feel like you are worrying too much throughout the day, maybe have a designated time of the day as a worry time where you write down what concerns you and try to think of a solution for them. Then when the worry arises at some other point throughout the day, really try to resist it and tell yourself that you will think about this later when you have your worry time. Also make sure that this time is not planned right before you go to sleep, as this might disrupt the quality of your sleep, and try to make these lists in maybe a room where which you don't associate with relaxation and sleep. So maybe in the kitchen or in the living room or somewhere where you are more active. Then there's being active. This can help to focus on something else and can release the build-up tension that I mentioned before with the fight or flight symptoms that you might be feeling when experiencing stress. I like to do a lot of high intensity interval training when I'm really stressed, because this really helps me to release a lot of build up energy which I have in my body, and helps me to really feel mentally and physically more relaxed afterwards. And these are things that you could easily do from your home. They're body weight exercises, so you might not even need equipment. There's ways around it, and there's also a lot of YouTube tutorials or videos out there that you could look at which can help you guide through these exercises. Otherwise, if you feel like not doing something so intense, you could always do yoga or Pilates if you don't feel like doing that. You currently go for a walk, right, Dom?
Yeah, I mean, even if you have dogs, make sure you walk the dogs out. Like, that is so important, especially now since everyone's in a lockdown. You get so much more time that you can spend with your pets. It's just crazy.
Is it too much time? Or?
I mean, I've got two hours, so they're full and active. I mean, I love spending time with them, especially since now I take them for that one walk a day, a long walk, a nice long walk to a field or something. Takes my mind off everything, and spending time with them is great.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm sure they're super happy.
Oh yeah, they're lovely.
So then it's also having me time, which is really important. For example, do some relaxing yoga that I mentioned before. There's also yin yoga, which is really not straining physically. So it's more of like stretching and relaxation, read a book, listen to music, watch some Netflix. Maybe try not to look at the news too much, because that could really add to your anxiety or stress. Anything that helps you to manage your stress really better, and what you figure out works best for you.
And I think what we have to address here is, if you will watch the news or if you will read something, make sure they are reliable sources, because you see so much, you hear so much on, like, I don't know, Facebook, and it's over exaggerated or not reliable. So I think that's one of the things to, that could potentially lower your stress as well.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of fake news out there, like such as, the 5G towers, which, I don't know, distribute the virus, and which people have put on fire. Like there's some really, really crazy things going on, and just make sure that you get your news from really reliable resources, such as the World Health Organization or any health authorities that can give you best guidance on what steps to take, and give you the facts and what is actually true. So don't listen to everything that's going on around, because there's a lot of viral stuff that is really not helpful at the moment. I will also talk about some psychological coping techniques in the next slide, which could also help you build your resilience and deal with stress. And you could use those during the me time that you have designated to yourself. So I'll talk about those next. And then lastly, maybe you just need to change of scenery or perspective. If you're stuck and feeling like nothing is working, do something completely different, like go for a walk to freshen up your mind and get back to what you need to do some other time, maybe. Or maybe just call a classmate or a friend to discuss what you're struggling with. Really hearing other perspectives can help at times to also change your perspective. So here are a range of mind-based and body-based relaxation exercises, which can help to reduce your stress and improve your levels of sleep. I would recommend giving all of them a try, because there's no one fits all technique and everyone prefers something differently. Some people might prefer body-based relaxation exercises, such as deep muscle relaxation, where you tense and relax different parts of your different muscle groups within your body until your whole body kind of feels them and your mind calms down as well, really helping you to understand the connection between your mind and your body. This is really, really shown to help with sleep as well. Then there's also calm breathing, which is another body-based relaxation exercise. This has really helped with people who feel panic at times. I know that I once had a friend who went through a panic episode, and her breathing was really shallow and her heartbeat was really fast, and she was sure she was going to get a heart attack and that she was going to die. But of course, these are all panic symptoms. She was completely healthy. I just sat down with her. I went through a couple of breathing exercises with her, made her concentrate on myself, made her concentrate on herself and her breathing. And just after a couple of these breathing exercises, her body went back to baseline, basically. Her fight or flight symptoms had disappeared and she was feeling calmer again. She was exhausted, but at least it brought her back to her attention back to the current state and not her worries and catastrophizing at the moment. So calm breathing can really help with panic symptoms. Then there is meditation, which is a mind-based relaxation exercise. This is basically an attention training exercise where you are encouraged to observe your thoughts objectively and without feeling that you have to do anything about them in the moment. So being able to bring your attention back to the now and being able to not worry about the future or the past or any of that, or having to do something in the moment. This can really take some time to get used to. So there's also guided meditation where somebody takes you on a walk somewhere, or aromatherapy where somebody describes different scents to you, just to take your attention away from all these thoughts and worries that you might have in that moment and to bring it somewhere else. This really helps you to also build your self-awareness. Then there is self-suggestion. This is when you think of a word or an image which helps you be associated with the feeling of calm. So, for example, for me, it's something and like an image, because I'm from Greece. So what I used to do is I used to go on a walk by the beach when I used to feel stressed. So just this imagery of a calm sea, a tranquil sea, just the golden colors of the sun, just that image in my head makes me feel calm immediately. But it doesn't really have to be an image, and it's very personal to you. It could be a word such as breathe, which helps you to feel calm. So these different relaxation techniques can be really applied in everyday situations. They're like life hacks. They're easy skills to manage. It only takes like 6 to 8 weeks to be able to get the full benefits and understand the full benefits of these techniques. And then there's also applied relaxation, which is a mix of deep muscle relaxation and cognitive behavioral therapy, which I will talk to you in a second. Applied relaxation is basically being able to bring your body to baseline, to stop the fight or flight symptoms that you might be feeling, and relax your whole body within 30 seconds without having to go through the whole tensing and relaxing different muscle groups within your body. But it also takes some time, but it's an extremely powerful technique. And lastly, CBT, just because it has the word therapy in it doesn't mean it's only meant for therapeutic reasons. It's shown to be really, really effective with prevention as well. It shows you and teaches you the connection between your emotions, thoughts, physical symptoms, as well as behaviors, and shows you what your stressors are and anxiety stressors within an environment are, and how these all interact with one another to bring about certain behaviors, certain unhelpful behaviors that you might have had, and think about stressful situations from a different perspective, a more cognitive and more conscious perspective, and be able to have more helpful thoughts to be able to deal with stresses in the future in a more resilient way. So CBT is really very useful for dealing with stress. So we have covered a range of things. We've covered the new challenges that you might be facing with remote learning, some tips on how to deal with these challenges, how to deal with interruptions, signs of stress, and what stress is, and different tips on how to cope with it. I hope some of these techniques can help you and maybe help the people around you to be able to stay focused and stay motivated during these times. And I would like to open up the floor to some questions now. So please go ahead and just type in the QA box or the chat box any questions. So there's one question. I'm struggling with my sleep schedule where I'm only productive throughout the night and waking up at 3 p.m. What is the most effective way to change this? Well, as mentioned before, we all have different chronotypes. That basically means that some of us are more effective at working during the night than working during the day, and some of us are more effective during the day than at night. So it's not necessarily about changing your whole schedule. It's more about, are you getting enough sleep? If you are getting enough sleep, it doesn't matter when that sleep is. Just make sure that you have a really dark room if it's during the day that you're getting the sleep, so that you're fully recovered. Just make sure that you have enough rest, you have enough sleep, and then adjust your schedule accordingly to what is more effective to you. You don't necessarily need to change the way you're studying or the way you work just because everyone else is working or studying at that specific time, unless you really want to. And then try to use one of those sleep diaries that I told you about, and try to kind of create this routine for yourself to be able to switch it up, because you might be able to change it, but if not, then don't worry, don't stress yourself too much about it. As long as you're still getting enough rest and sleep, it's okay.
Like, that sounds something that I do. Like, I work during the night as well, but for me, I can't sleep till the afternoon, and I tend to go to have a quite long nap from 4 p.m. onwards. But that's how I sleep. So I tried changing the pattern and it didn't work because my concentration levels were not as high during the day. So it does depend individually, as Alyssa has said. So, I mean, you could try changing your schedule, but it's not guaranteed it's going to work. It just might be the way, you know, as an individual you are, and that's when your concentration is at its peak.
Yeah. And also as a student, we're mostly lucky that, you know, you can create your schedule around when you work more effectively. So don't try to change your own habits just because that's what society is telling you to do, you know, because like I said, chronotypes are really individual to each person. So there's another question. Why am I hungry just sitting at a laptop? It's causing me to snack more. Yeah, this response is part of the stress response that you might be feeling because your brain is actually using up quite a lot of energy within your body. And so your body might be telling you that you're hungry, even though you've had enough calories to be able to go throughout the day. So what I tend to do when I'm feeling this hunger, even though I've just eaten, I try to either go for a walk or do some exercise. For me, it's usually high intensity interval training that I do because it really helps me to not feel hungry anymore and helps me to manage my hunger. I don't know, do you do something, Dom?
I mean, I was advised to drink loads of water. I think that's one of another crucial things. Sometimes your body's saying, or your mind saying you are hungry, but actually you're not. You're just craving something to drink. So I think it's quite important that, okay, if you feel hungry, have a glass of water or something and try that. And as Alyssa said, try change the scenery, go for a walk, you know, go and perhaps maybe not watch a movie because that will probably make you feel hungry as well. But change the scenery completely, do some yoga.
Yeah, go as far away from food as possible. I don't know, like try out different things like that. And if you don't want to,
drinking water helps the most probably because I'm like filling my stomach with water and, you know, I'm not feeling the hunger.
Yeah, exactly. Also, it might be really useful to drink flavored water. I like to drink a lot of lemon water as well. This makes me feel really like not hungry at all. So
and it's not as boring.
Yeah, exactly. It's not as boring as simple water. So yeah, flavored water is always good. Another person said, my friend's mental health is declining because of stress. How do I support them? Yeah, so it's really important to also be mindful of your friends and make sure that they're feeling okay with the situation because we, as said before, we all have different stress thresholds. So what you can do is recommend some of those psychological coping strategies that I've mentioned before, and just put the slide up here again. This really helps them to understand the stress that they are facing, to understand their behaviors and their emotions. Especially doing some CBT can help to do this because this will help them to build the skills to be more resilient in the future and to deal with stress in a more conscious way. And then these relaxation exercises can really help them to deal with fight or flight symptoms that they might be feeling because of the stress.
I mean, it's quite important to have just a regular conversation, like reach out to them, make sure that you have a casual conversation, maybe not relating about the stress as well, like to take the mind off of it, especially now you've got this, I think it's an app called House Party where you can play games with your friends. I think that is sort of helpful as well. Like I find it helpful to communicate with my friends using this and, you know, take our minds off everything that causes stress within us.
Yeah, exactly. Just having a conversation about other things, and even if you want to, if this person wants to talk about the stress, just lend an ear and listen to them, and just be non-judgmental about how they're feeling, because stress is very individual to every single person. So just be mindful when talking to them and share your experience as well, because the more you share your own experience, the more likely they will share their experiences as well. So it's a mutual sharing kind of scenario. Yeah, so I think that's all the questions for today. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that this is going to help you and going to help other people around you and to deal with stress, and hope you all stay well and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.